Keel here with Sailing Vessel Dream Chaser, and in today's episode we're finally going to go ahead and reassemble the butterfly hatch. It's been a little while, I got a little sidetracked on a few other projects, but the rain has stopped and it's time to reassemble.
So just to refresh everybody's memory, part one was actually the disassembly and removable and sanding of the butterfly hatch. Part two was preparing the surface and varnishing. And in part three, we're going to go ahead and start to talk about how to finish up the varnishing, polish, and the reassembly. So you can either do this with sandpaper, 220 grit, which is what I typically start with, but once I get up to about coat 4 or 5, I use a Scotch-Brite pad. You can start with green, which is coarse, and then as I get to the final ones, I will just use a light wipe with a white Scotch-Brite pad, which is the finest one of all. But basically you want to rub this, and all you're trying to do is scuff the top layer a little bit and remove any of the little imperfections that stick up higher than the wood surface itself. You're not applying a lot of tremendous pressure here, just enough to get that good and smooth. You want to be a little bit careful when you get to the edges. So when you're sanding, your fingers will tend to curl and you'll rub more off the edge. So be very conscious of that. Try and make sure that you're holding your fingers kind of upward so you don't end up doing that. And then I'll try and avoid the edges, and then at the very end I'll just lightly run one line along the edge. It helps me maintain that smoother finish. Every once in a while you want to just kind of hit that thing against the table to get the dust out of it. You're just going to go ahead and repeat this process now between coats. Like I said, I go to the white Scotch-Brite pad, and here I'll add about another 4 or 5 layers on this. I'm putting it on pretty thin. You just want to make sure you get a good coat on it, and then scuff up the next one after it's dry and put another coat on there.
Well, you know, there's also an old theory that if you varnish your bronze, it will stay nice color and not patina. But frankly, I like the patina look. It's real bronze. So I've got a 320 grit sandpaper, and I'm just mildly sanding that varnish off of there. And then I'm going to use a polish to get these at least a little bit clean and let them patina evenly.
So as I started to polish these, I quickly realized that I was going to need to pretty much sand them down evenly. So I used a 400 or 600 grit, I don't recall which it was, and just sanded off the outer edge just to get the heavy tarnish off. Then I had a little visitor, so all that kind of slowed down a little bit. After my little friend went back down below, I went ahead and started doing more of the polishing. I was doing this between the time the coats were drying. You can see I tried 2 different products here, and I apologize, I had the mic turned off on the camera at the time, but I used something called Barkeeper's Friend. That's what's in the bottle you see here. And then I also have a small jar of the Prism Polish. Barkeeper's Friend is readily available. You can get it at probably your local grocery store, or even Walmart or Home Depot. And it's great for stainless steel, but it was truly a pretty amazing difference at just how much better the Prism Polish actually worked. So you'll be able to see when these things get done just what a difference. You put a little bit on the towel and you rub it in circular motions to, essentially what you're doing, it's a mild abrasion, and you're essentially sanding or polishing the top layer of metal off. Just not nearly enough abrasion on that Barkeeper's Friend. But the Prism Polish, if you put a little bit on a towel and you rub it, the bronze will quickly turn black, and then you wipe that with another clean part of the towel, and what you're doing is removing all of that tarnish. Truly is amazing how it starts to shine up. Like I said, I had no intention of making these actually shiny, but the challenge I ran into was that the spots where the varnish was still being cleaned off while the other parts were starting to polish up. So I ended up having to polish these things fairly well across the whole thing. I realize they're not going to last. They're going to patina, but at least they'll patina evenly. They look pretty right now, but I really don't have a desire to constantly polish bronze on a boat. I like that green patinaed bronze look over time. So with additional coats of varnish put on the wood and taking the time between waiting for it to dry to polish the bronze, it was now time to start actually assembling all the products back together. And you can see here the hatch frame is, it looks pretty good. It has a nice coating on it. It's very shiny. I think I have either 8 or 9 layers of varnish. I can't recall now off the top of my head, but I just did it until it had the finish that ultimately I wanted. So I'm going to start here by starting to assemble and put together some of the components that go on here, and then I'll actually install it into the deck of the boat. I started by reinstalling the screw-in snaps that are used to hold the canvas cover over this to protect it from the UV rays. Put 4 of them, 2 on each side. I'm now installing the hardware that goes on the bottom side of each of the butterfly hatches. Starting in the center here, I'm putting on the small hook and latch assembly. That is what connects to the bottom side, and you tighten up a thumb screw to hold it and latch it down. I'm now putting in the locking slides that attach to the sides of the frame. When you open up the butterfly hatch, there's a brass knob that you tighten down to hold this in any position from all the way closed to all the way open. And once done, we just repeat this on both sides of each hatch. So at this point, it was time to actually install the hatch back into the roof of the boat. So I removed the small pieces of wood I had that were keeping this covered while I hadn't varnished it. And you can see here it's a good tight fit, so it's just a matter of lining the corners up, and I had to give it a little tap on one side and it slid right down into the opening. What you don't see in this video is the way this attaches. There are screws on the inside of the frame that go into some 2x4 frames between the deck and the lower side of the ceiling, or the inside of the core. After attaching the frame to the deck, it was time to go ahead and put the center support for the butterfly flaps on. The joinery is amazing. It's a beautiful dovetail joint, single cut dovetail joint on each end. Fits in there perfectly. You can see the hatch is going in now. It has the hardware on the bottom side of it, and I'm just going to lay these up here until I can install the hinges to hold it all in place. Now it's just a matter of repeating this on the other side. Same kind of thing, just lay the hatch down in place, and I'll get it lined up so I can start to put the hinges on. So I certainly will speed this up. There's no sense in you watching me just put screws in here, because there's quite a few screws that hold all these together. What I found interesting, however, is this is an old boat, and these things were probably handcrafted or hand poured into a mold. So they are a little bit different. I actually had to move them around and make sure that I was aligning the correct hinge that had all the holes lined up. I mean, they looked like they were about the same, but you know, the hinges opened a little bit differently. They were bent just a little bit differently from a curve perspective. So I had to kind of move them around a little bit because I didn't think to mark them when I actually took them off of the hatch in the beginning of this process. So just put all the screws back in, and I'm using all bronze screws. The ones I couldn't reuse because they were broke, I bought new ones. Now that the 2 outer bronze hinges were in place, it was time to install the bronze knobs that I was mentioning before. You can kind of see the bracket right there by my hand. It goes from the butterfly flap down to a bronze fitting inside the hatch, and the knob screws right into that. So once I tighten it up, it will hold it at any angle that you ultimately want. Well, at this point, it is now complete. I just have the stainless steel glass guards to install. And you can kind of see the glass is a little bit dirty, so I'll try and clean it up. If not, I may end up having to replace the glass panels, but that's okay. It'll be easy enough to cut out of there. She looks good now that she's done, though. Well, I hope this 3-part series gives you the confidence it takes to go ahead and do a project like this. It's really not a hard project. It's just a matter of thinking through the steps, doing them one at a time, and making sure that you are careful as you go ahead and disassemble items and mark where things go. So, hope you found this video useful. Please do like the video for us. That really helps us out. And feel free to share this with any of your friends, sailing friends, or woodworking friends, or frankly any of the forums that you might happen to be part of on sailing or boating maintenance. Thanks, and I hope you do enjoy the videos. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for weekly updates and like this video.